Right to try. Everybody know about right to try. We did things that nobody ever thought possible. We took care of our vets. Our vets, the VA now, has the highest rating, 91%, the highest rating that it's had from the beginning. 91% approval rating. Always, you watch the VA, it was on television every night, people living in a horrible, horrible manner. We got that done. We got accountability done. We got it so that now in the VA, you don't have to wait for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 months to see a doctor. If you can't get a doctor, you go outside, you get the doctor, you have him taken care of, and we pay the doctor. And we've not only made life wonderful for so many people, we've saved tremendous amounts of money, far secondarily, but we've saved a lot of money. And now we have to light the fire again. We say, Joe, you're fired, get out of here. Before you couldn't do that before. So we've taken care of things, we've done things like nobody's ever thought possible. And that's part of the reason that many people don't like us, because we've done too much. But we've done it quickly, and we were going to sit home and watch a big victory, and everybody had us down for a victory, it was going to be great. And now we're out here fighting. I said to somebody I was going to take a few days and relax after our big electoral victory. 10 o'clock it was over, but I was going to take a few days. And I can say this, since our election, I believe, which was such a catastrophe when I watched, and even these guys knew what happened, they know what happened. They're saying, wow, Pennsylvania's insurmountable, wow. Wisconsin, look at the big leads we had. Even though the press said we would lose Wisconsin by 17 points. Even though the press said Ohio's going to be close, we set a record. Florida's going to be close, we set a record. Texas is going to be close. Texas is going to be close, we set a record. And we set a record with Hispanic, with the black community, we set a record with everybody. Today we see a very important event, though, because right over there, right there, we see the event going to take place, and I'm going to be watching it.
Well, I mean, the sergeant at arms needs to go right down and just arrest them all.
Throughout history, throughout eternity, they'll be ashamed. And you know what? If they do the wrong thing, we should never, ever forget.
That's right. That's right.
We should never, ever forget. With all the degree of sophistication and Christ, we win the presidency of the United States. And by the way, it's much more important today than it was 24 hours ago. Because, I spoke to David Perdue, what a great person, and Kelly Leffler, two great people. But it was a setup. And you know, I said, we have no backline anymore. The only backline, the only line of demarcation, the only line that we have is the veto of the President of the United States. So this is now, what we're doing, a far more important election than it was 2 days ago.
That's right.
I want to thank the more than 140 members of the House. Those are warriors. They're over there working like you've never seen before, studying, talking, actually going all the way back, studying the roots of the Constitution, because they know we have the right to send a bad vote that was illegally got. They gave these people bad things to vote for, and they voted, because what did they know? And then when they found out a few weeks later, again, it took them 4 years to devise history. And the only unhappy person in the United States, single most unhappy, is Hillary Clinton, because she said, why didn't you do this for me 4 years ago? Why didn't you do this for me 4 years ago? Change the votes, 10,000 in Michigan. He could have changed the whole thing, but she's not too happy. You don't see her anymore. What happened? Where's Hillary? But I want to thank all those Congress and women. I also want to thank our 13 most courageous members of the U.S. Senate. Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Ron Johnson.
That's right.
I'm telling you,
That's right.
she's been celebrating. She worked so hard. So let's give her a day with a little special because it was rigged against us. Let's give her a day. Which has never been allowed to be used, and I was telling these people, don't let them use this stuff. Marshall, Blackburn, terrific. Mike Braun, Steve Daines, Bill Harry, John Kennedy, James Langford, Cynthia Lumps, Tommy Tuberville, the coach, and Roger Marshall. We want to thank them. Senators have stepped up. We want to thank them. $2,000 to people. We want to give them $600. No, how does that play politically? Pretty good. And this has nothing to do with politics, but has to play politically. China destroyed these people. We didn't destroy them. China destroyed them. Totally destroyed them. We want to give them $600, and they just wouldn't change. I said, give them $2,000. We'll pay it back. We'll pay it back fast. You already owe $26 trillion. Give them a couple of bucks. Let them live. Give them a couple of bucks. And some of the people here disagree with me on that, but I just say, look, you got to let people live. And how does that play, though? Okay, number one, it's the right thing to do. But how does that play politically? I think it's the primary reason, one of the primary reasons. The other was just pure cheating. That was the primary, super primary reason. But you can't do that. You got to use your head. As you know, the media has constantly asserted the outrageous lie that there was no evidence of widespread fraud. You ever see these people? While there is no evidence of fraud, oh really? I'm going to read you pages. I hope you don't get bored listening to it. Promise? Don't get bored listening to it. All those hundreds of thousands of people back there. Move them up, please. All these people, don't get bored. Don't get angry at me because you're going to get bored because it's so much. The American people do not believe the corrupt fake news anymore. They have ruined their reputation. You know, it used to be that they'd argue if we had fights. So I'd fight, they'd fight, I'd fight, they'd fight, boom, boom. You believe me, you believe them. Somebody comes out, you know. They had their point of view, I had my point of view. But you'd have an argument. Now what they do is they go silent. It's called suppression. And that's what happens in a communist country. That's what they do. They suppress. You don't fight with them anymore. Unless it's a bad story. They have a little bad story about me, they make it 10 times worse and it's a major complaint. But Hunter Biden, they don't talk about him. What happened to Hunter? Where's Hunter? They don't talk about him. Watch, all the sets will go off. Well, they can't do that because they get good ratings. The ratings are too good. Now, where's Hunter? You know, and how come Joe was allowed to give $1 billion of money to get rid of the prosecutor in Ukraine? How does that happen? I'd ask you that question. How does that happen? Can you imagine if I said that? If I said that, it would be a whole different ballgame. And how come Hunter gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? And gets hundreds, thousands of dollars to sit on the energy board, even though he admits he has no knowledge of energy. And millions of dollars up front. And how come they go into China and they leave with millions of dollars? We have a corrupt media. They've gone silent. They've gone dead. I now realize how good it was. If you go back 10 years, I realize how good, even though I didn't necessarily love them, I realized how good it was, like a cleansing motion, right? But we don't have that anymore. We don't have a fair media anymore. It's suppression, and you have to be very careful with that. And they've lost all credibility in this country. We will not be intimidated into accepting the hoaxes and the lies that we've been forced to believe. Over the past several weeks, we've amassed overwhelming evidence about a fake election. This is the presidential election. Last night was a little bit better because of the fact that we had a lot of eyes watching one specific state, but they cheated like hell anyway. You have one of the dumbest governors in the United States. And you know, when I endorsed him, I didn't know this guy, at the request of David Perdue, he said, a friend of mine's running for governor, what's his name? And you know the rest. He was in 4th place, 5th place, I don't know, he was doing poorly. I endorsed him, he looked like a rocket ship. And then I had to be Stacey Abrams.
No, you're good.
My little gun. God bless you.
They're old. 60s.
Michelle Obama and Barack Hussein Obama against the
right first.
And I had Brian
So
Kemp.
time deadline. So they had to have it
Weighs
certified by the
30
15th.
pounds. He said he played offensive line in football.
And now you got the whole Dominion thing. Same shit, different year.
I look at that and I look at what's happened. And he turned out to be a disaster. This stuff happens. You know, look, I'm not happy with the Supreme Court. They love to rule against me. I picked 3 people. I fought like hell for them. One in particular, I fought. They all said, sir, cut him loose. He's killing us. Senators, you know, very loyal senators. They're very loyal people. Sir, cut him loose. He's killing us, sir. Cut him loose, sir. I must have gotten half of the senators. I said, no, I can't do that. It's unfair to him and it's unfair to the family. He didn't do anything wrong. They're made up stories. They're all made up stories. He didn't do anything wrong. Cut him loose, sir. I said, no, I won't do that. We got him through. And you know what? They couldn't give a damn. They couldn't give a damn. Let him rule the right way. But it almost seems that they're all going out of their way to hurt all of us and to hurt our country. To hurt our country. You know, I read a story in one of the newspapers recently how I control 3 Supreme Court justices. I control them. They're puppets.
You have fake news or
I
no?
read it about Bill Barr, that he's my personal attorney, that he'll do anything for me.
You have fake news?
And I said, you know, it really is genius.
Arizona
Because
Republic.
what they do is that, and it makes it really impossible for them to ever give you
I
a victory.
smelled them a mile away.
Because all of a sudden Bill Barr changed, if you hadn't noticed.
Like, man,
I like Bill Barr, but he changed because he didn't want to be considered my personal attorney. And the Supreme Court, they rule against me so much. You know why? Because the story is, I haven't spoken to any of them, since virtually they got in. But the story is that they're my puppet, right? That they're puppets. And now the only way they can get out of that, because they hate that, it's not good on the social circuit, that the only way they get out is to rule against Trump. So let's rule against Trump, and they do that, so I want to congratulate them. But it shows you the media's genius. In fact, probably if I was the media, I'd do it the same way. I hate to say it. But we got to get them straightened out. Today, for the sake of our democracy, for the sake of our Constitution, and for the sake of our children, we lay out the case for the entire world to hear. Do you want to hear it? In every single swing state, local officials, state officials, almost all Democrats, made illegal and unconstitutional changes to election procedures without the mandated approvals by the state legislatures. And these changes paved the way for fraud on a scale never seen before. And I think we can go a long way outside of our country when I say that. So, just in a nutshell, you can't make a change on voting for a federal election unless the state legislature approves it. No judge can do it. Nobody can do it. Only a legislature. So as an example, in Pennsylvania or whatever, you have a Republican legislature, you have a Democrat mayor, and you have a lot of Democrats all over the place. They go to the legislature laughs at them, says, we're not going to do that. They say, thank you very much. Then they go and make the changes themselves. They do it anyway. And that's totally illegal. That's totally illegal. You can't do that. In Pennsylvania, the Democrat Secretary of State and the Democrat State Supreme Court justices illegally abolished the signature verification requirements just 11 days prior to the election. So think of what they did. No longer
Okay, yeah.
to their signature verification. You have 205,000 more ballots than you had voters. That means you have 200. Where did they come from? You know where they came from? Somebody's imagination, whatever they need. So in Pennsylvania, you had 205,000 more votes than you had voters. And the number's actually much greater than that now. That was as of a week ago. And this is a mathematical impossibility unless you want to say it's a total fraud. So Pennsylvania was defrauded. Over 8,000 ballots in Pennsylvania were cast by people whose names and dates of birth match individuals who died in 2020 and prior to the election. Think of that, dead people. Lots of dead people, thousands. And some dead people actually requested an application. That bothers me a bit. Not only are they voting, they want an application to vote. One of them was 29 years ago died. It's incredible. Over 14,000 ballots were cast by out-of-state voters. So these are voters that don't live in the state. And by the way, these numbers are what they call outcome determinative, meaning these numbers far surpass, I lost by a very little bit. These numbers are massive, massive. More than 10,000 votes in Pennsylvania were illegally counted, even though they were received after Election Day. In other words, they were received after Election Day. Let's count them anyway. And what they did in many cases is they did fraud. They took the date and they moved it back so that it no longer is after Election Day. And more than 60,000 ballots in Pennsylvania were reported received back. They got back before they were ever supposedly mailed out. In other words, you got the ballot back before you mailed it, which is also logically and logistically impossible, right? Think of that one. You got the ballot back. Let's send the ballots. Oh, they've already been sent. But we got the ballot back before they were sent. I don't think that's too good, right? 25,000 ballots in Pennsylvania were requested by nursing home residents, all in a single giant batch, not legal, indicating an enormous illegal ballot harvesting operation. You're not allowed to do it. It's against the law. The day before the election, the state of Pennsylvania reported the number of absentee ballots that had been sent out. Yet this number was suddenly and drastically increased by 400,000 people. It was increased, nobody knows where it came from, by 400,000 ballots one day after the election. It remains totally unexplained. They said, well, we can't figure that. Now that's many, many times what it would take to overthrow the state. Just that one element. 400,000 ballots appeared from nowhere right after the election. By the way, Pennsylvania has now seen all of this. They didn't know because it was so quick. They had to vote, they voted. But now they see all this stuff. It's all come to light. It doesn't happen that fast. And they want to recertify their votes. They want to recertify. But the only way that can happen is if Mike Pence agrees to send it back. Mike Pence has to agree to send it back. And many people in Congress want to send back. And think of what you're doing. Let's say you don't do it. Somebody says, well, we have to obey the Constitution, and you are. Because you're protecting our country and you're protecting the Constitution, so you are. Yeah. But think of what happens. Let's say they're stiffs, and they're stupid people, and they say, well, we really have no choice. Even though Pennsylvania and other states want to redo their votes, they want to see the numbers, they already have the numbers, go very quickly, and they want to redo their legislature. Because many of these votes were taken, as I said, because it wasn't approved by their legislature, you know? That in itself is legal, and then you have the scam, and that's all of the things that we're talking about. But think of this, if you don't do that, that means you will have a president of the United States for 4 years, with his wonderful son.
Well, in terms of economy-wise, probably been around the same.
Who lost all of these states. Or you will have a president, to put it another way, who was voted on by a bunch of stupid people. You will have an illegitimate president. We can't have that. These are the facts that you won't hear from the news media. It's all part of the suppression act. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about that. In fact, when I started talking about that, I guarantee you about that. And a lot of those guys but a lot of them went off. But these are the things you don't hear about. You don't hear what you just heard. I'm going to go over a few more states. But you don't hear it by the people who want to deceive you and demoralize you and control you, big tech media. Just like the suppression polls that said, we're going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points. Well, we won Wisconsin. They don't have it that way because they lose just by a little sliver. But they had me down the day before, Washington Post, ABC poll, down 17 points. I called up the real pollster. I said, what is that? So let's call the suppression poll. I think you're going to win Wisconsin soon. I said, but why don't they make it 4 or 5 points? Because then people vote. But when you're down 17, they say, hey, I'm not going to waste my time. I love the president, but there's no way. Despite that, we won Wisconsin. We'll see. We will see. But that's called suppression, because a lot of people, when they see that, it's very interesting. This pollster said, sir, if you're down 3, 4, 5, people vote. When you go down 17, they say, let's go and have dinner. Let's watch the presidential defeat tonight on television, dog. And just like the radical left tries to blacklist you on social media, every time I put out a tweet, that's, even if it's totally correct, I get a flag. And they also don't let you get out. You know, on Twitter, it's very hard to come onto my account. It's very hard to get out of the message.
You have to send it to
They
me.
don't let the message get out nearly like they should. But I've had many people say, I can't get on Twitter. I don't care about Twitter. Twitter's bad news. They're all bad news. You know what? If you want to get out of this, and if you want to go to big tech, they are really your conservative. If you're a Republican, if you're the big one, I guess they call it shadow banning. They shadow ban you, and that's really, I'm telling you, these Republicans are going to lose their issue. For some reason, they don't realize that that's going to be the end of the Republican Party as we know it, but it's never going to be the end of us, ever. Let the weak ones get out. This is a time for strength. They also want to indoctrinate your children in school by teaching them things that aren't so. They want to indoctrinate your children. It's all part of a comprehensive assault on our democracy, and the American people are finally standing up and saying, no, this crowd is, again, testament to it. I did no advertising. I did nothing. You do have some groups that are big supporters. I want to thank that, Amy and everybody. We have some incredible supporters. Incredible. But we didn't do anything. This just happened 2 months ago. We have a massive crowd around Washington.
in a nice way now.
Actually, we kept the UL here. We did good. We got rid of the ISIS caliphate. We got rid of plenty of different things that everybody knows. And the rebuilding of our military in 3 years, people said it couldn't be done. And it was all made in the USA. All made in the USA. Best equipment in the world. In Wisconsin, corrupt Democrat-run cities deployed more than 500 illegal, unmanned, unsecured drop boxes, which collected a minimum of 91,000 unlawful votes. It was razor thin, the loss. This one thing alone is much more than we would need. But there are many things. They have these lock boxes, and you know, they pick them up and they disappear for 2 days. People say, where's that box? They disappear. Nobody ever knew where the hell it was. In addition, over 170,000 absentee votes were counted in Wisconsin. Without about 150,000 applications, so they have a lot of people applications, and that's illegal in Wisconsin. Meaning it was blatantly done in opposition to state law, and they came 100% from Democrat areas such as Milwaukee and Madison. 100%. In Madison, 17,000 votes were deposited in so-called human drop boxes. You know what that is? Where hundreds of thousands of unsecured ballots in LA, one apartment across the city, in complete defiance of CCTC's letters to the state legislature. The state legislature said, no, they're the only ones that can approve it. They gave tens of thousands of votes. They came in duffel bags. Where the heck did they come from? According to eyewitness testimony, Postal Service workers in Wisconsin were also instructed to eliminate back pay for approximately 100,000. Each one of these big
One would feel like they could own it if they're not invested like that.
great state. We love the state. We won the state. In Georgia, your Secretary of State, who I can't believe this guy's a Republican. He loves She did a good job. I congratulate her, but it was done in such a way that we can't let this stuff happen. We won't have a country if it happens. As a result, Georgia's absentee ballot rejection rate was more than 10 times lower than previous levels because the criteria was so off. 48 counties in Georgia with thousands and thousands of votes rejected 0 ballots. It wasn't one ballot. In other words, in a year in which more mail-in ballots were sent than ever before, and more people were voting by mail for the first time, the rejection rate was drastically lower than it had ever been before. The only way this can be explained is if tens of thousands of illegitimate votes were added to the tally. That's the only way you can explain it. By the way, you're talking about tens of thousands. If Georgia had merely rejected the same number of unlawful ballots as in other years, there should have been approximately 45,000 ballots rejected, far more than what we needed to win, just over 11,000. They should find those votes. They should absolutely find that. Just over 11,000 votes is all we need. They defrauded us out of a win in Georgia, and we're not going to forget it. There's only one reason the Democrats could possibly want to eliminate signature matching, oppose voter ID, and stop citizenship confirmation. Are you a citizenship? You're not allowed to ask that question. Because they want to steal the election. The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They're ruthless, and it's time that somebody did something about it. And Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you, I will tell you right now. I'm not hearing good stories. In Fulton County, Republican poll watchers were ejected, in some cases physically, from the room under the false pretense of a pipe burst. Water main burst, everybody leave, which we now know was a total lie. Then election officials pulled boxes, Democrats, and suitcases of ballots out from under a table, you all saw it on television, totally fraudulent, and illegally scanned them for nearly 2 hours, totally unsupervised. Tens of thousands of votes. This act coincided with a mysterious vote dump of up to 100,000 votes for Joe Biden, almost none for Trump. Oh, that sounds fair. That was at 1:34 a.m. The Georgia Secretary of State and pathetic governor of Georgia have reached, although he says I'm a great
That buzzer though. Yeah, why not?
They rejected 5 separate appeals for an independent and comprehensive audit of signatures in Fulton County. Even without an audit, the number of fraudulent ballots that we've identified across the state is staggering. Over 10,300 ballots in Georgia were cast by individuals whose names and dates of birth match Georgia residents who died in 2020 and prior to the election. More than 2,500 ballots were cast by individuals whose names and dates of birth match incarcerated members of Georgia prison, people who are not allowed to vote. More than 4,500 illegal ballots were cast by individuals who do not appear on the state's own. Over 18,000 illegal ballots were cast by individuals using an address as vacant. At least 88,000 ballots were cast by people whose registrations were illegally infected. 66,000 votes each one of these is far from 66,000 votes.
Is Russia? Yeah, right. It's like, but all this Russia bullshit.
Not their interests. Good. I hope you're right, brother. God bless you.
That lady over there?
Yes, sir. You're right.
More than there were actually. Were purposely lowered before they were used.
Yes, sir.
To count over 130,000 ballots. If you signed your name as Santa Claus, it would go through. There were also more than 42,000 double votes in Nevada. Over 150,000 people were hurt so badly by what took place. 1,500 ballots were cast by individuals whose names and dates of birth matched Nevada residents who died in 2020 prior to November 3rd election. More than 8,000 votes were cast by individuals who had no address and probably didn't live there. The margin in Nevada is down at a very low number. Any of these things would have taken care of the situation. We would have won Nevada also. Every one of these we're going over, we win. In Michigan, quickly, the Secretary of State, a real great one, flooded the state with unsolicited mail-in ballot applications sent to every person on the rolls in direct violation of state law. More than 17,000 Michigan ballots were cast by individuals whose names and dates of birth match people who were deceased. In Wayne County, that's a great one, that's Detroit, 174,000 ballots were counted without being tied to an actual registered voter. Nobody knows where they came from. Also in Wayne County, poll watchers observed canvassers rescanning batches of ballots over and over again, up to 3 or 4 or 5 times. In Detroit, turnout was 139% of registered voters. Think of that. So you had 139% of the people in Detroit voting. This is in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. A career employee of the City of Detroit testified under penalty of perjury that she witnessed city workers coaching voters to vote straight Democrat while accompanying them to watch who they voted for. When a Republican came in, they wouldn't talk to him. The same worker was instructed not to ask for any voter ID and not to attempt to validate any signatures if they were Democrats. She also told to illegally and was told backdate ballots received after the deadline and reports that thousands and thousands of ballots were improperly backdated. That's Michigan. 4 witnesses have testified under penalty of perjury that after officials in Detroit announced the last votes had been counted, tens of thousands of additional ballots arrived without required envelopes. Every single one was for a Democrat. They got no votes. At 6:31 a.m. in the early morning hours after voting had ended, Michigan suddenly reported 147,000 votes. An astounding 94% went to Joe Biden, who campaigned brilliantly from his basement. Only a couple of percentage points went to Trump. Such gigantic and one-sided vote dumps were only observed in a few swing states, and they were observed in the states where it was necessary. You know what's interesting? President Obama beat Biden in every state other than the swing states where Biden killed him, but the swing states were the ones that mattered. They're always just enough to push Joe Biden barely into the lead. We were ahead by a lot, and within a number of hours, we were losing by a little. In addition, there is the highly troubling matter of Dominion voting systems. In one Michigan county alone, 6,000 votes were switched from Trump to Biden, and the same systems are used in the majority of states in our country. Senator William Ligon, great gentleman, chairman of Georgia Senate Judiciary Subcommittee. Senator Ligon, highly respected. On elections, has written a letter describing his concerns with Dominion in Georgia. He wrote, and I quote, "The Dominion voting machines employed in Fulton County had an astounding 93.67% error rate." So he wrote 93%. In the scanning of ballots required
Dilly. He's peeing on CNN.
Or ask him how much it is.
A lot of the media responded to it.
It does not change your voter registration.
How many,
Right.
Communism. Yeah. Pure communism at its best.
So you got two.
Yeah, I don't know how long I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, Dave Gilbert there.
This is the most fraudulent thing anybody's. This is a criminal enterprise. This is a criminal enterprise. And the press will say, and I'm sure they won't put any of that on there because that's no good. If you ever see, while there is no evidence to back President Trump's assertion, I could go on for another hour reading this stuff to you and telling you about it. There's never been anything like it. Think about it. Detroit had more votes than it had voters. Pennsylvania had 205,000 more votes than it had more votes. You don't have to go any. Between that, I think that's almost better than dead people, if you think, right? More votes than they had voters, and many other states also. It's a disgrace that the United States of America, tens of millions of people are allowed to go vote without so much as even showing identification. In no state is there any question or effort made to verify the identity, citizenship, residency, or eligibility of the votes cast. The Republicans have to get tougher. You're not going to have a Republican Party if you don't get tougher. They want to play so straight. They want to play so, sir, yes, the United States. The Constitution doesn't allow me to send them back to the states. Well, I say, yes, it does, because the Constitution says you have to protect our country, and you have to protect our Constitution. And you can't vote on fraud. And fraud breaks up everything, doesn't it? When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do. And I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos and the stupid people that he's listening to. It is also widely understood that the voter rolls are crammed full of non-citizens, felons, and people who have moved out of state, and individuals who are otherwise ineligible to vote. Yet Democrats oppose every effort to clean up their voter rolls. They don't want to clean them up. They're loaded. And how many people here know other people that when the hundreds of thousands and then millions of ballots got sent out, got 3, 4, 5, 6, and I heard one who got 7 ballots. And then they say, you didn't quite make it, sir. We won in a landslide. This was a landslide. They said it's not American to challenge the election. This is the most corrupt election in the history, maybe of the world. You know, you can go third world countries, but I don't think they had hundreds of thousands of votes and they don't have voters for them. I mean, no matter where you go, nobody would think this. In fact, it's so egregious, it's so bad that a lot of people don't even believe it. It's so crazy. that people don't even believe it. It can't be true. So they don't believe it. This is not just a matter of domestic politics. This is a matter of national security. So today, in addition to challenging the certification of the election, I'm calling on Congress and the state legislatures to quickly pass sweeping election reforms, and you better do it before we have no country left. Today is not the end, it's just the beginning. With your help over the last 4 years, we built the greatest political movement in the history of our country, and nobody even challenges that. I say that over and over, and I never get challenged by the fake news, and they challenge almost everything we say. But our fight against the big donors, big media, big tech, and others is just getting started. This is the greatest in history. There's never been a movement like that. You look back there all the way to the Washington Monument. It's hard to believe. We must stop this deal, and then we must ensure that such outrageous election fraud never happens again, can never be allowed to happen again. But we're going forward. We'll take care of going forward. We got to take care of going back. Don't let them talk. Okay, well, we promise. I've had a lot of people. Sir, you're at 96% for 4 years. I said, I'm not interested right now. I'm interested in right there. With your help, we will finally pass powerful requirements for voter ID. You need an ID to cash a check. You need an ID to go to a bank, to buy alcohol, to drive a car. Every person should need to show an ID in order to cast the most important thing, a vote. We will also require proof of American citizenship in order to vote in American elections. We just had a good victory in court on that one, actually. We will ban ballot harvesting and prohibit the use of unsecured drop boxes to commit rampant fraud. These drop boxes are fraudulent. Therefore, they disappear, and then all of a sudden they show up. It's fraudulent. We will stop the practice of universal unsolicited mail-in balloting. We will clean up the voter rolls and ensure that every single person who casts a vote is a citizen of our country, a resident of the state in which they vote, and their vote is cast in a lawful and honest manner. We will restore the vital civic tradition of in-person voting on Election Day so that voters can be fully informed when they make their choice. We will finally hold big tech accountable, and if these people had courage and guts, they would get rid of Section 230, something that no other company, no other person in America, in the world has. All of these tech monopolies are going to abuse their power and interfere in our elections, and it has to be stopped. And the Republicans have to get a lot tougher, and so should the Democrats. They should be regulated, investigated, and brought to justice under the fullest extent of the law. Together we will drain the Washington swamp, and we will clean up the corruption in our nation's capital. We have done a big job on it, but if you think it's easy, it's a dirty business. It's a dirty business. You have a lot of bad people out there. Despite everything we've been through, looking out all over this country and seeing fantastic crowds, although this, I think, is our all-time record. I think you have 250,000 people. 250,000! Looking out at all the amazing patriots here today, I have never been more confident in our nation's future. Well, I have to say we have to be a little bit careful. That's a nice statement, but we have to be a little careful with that statement. If we allow this group of people to illegally take over our country, because it's illegal when the votes are illegal, when the way they got there is illegal, when the states that vote are given false and fraudulent information. We are the greatest country on earth, and we are headed and were headed in the right direction. You know, the wall is built. We're doing record numbers at the wall. Now they want to take down the wall. Let's let everyone see. Let's let everybody see. We did a great job in the wall. Remember the wall? They said it could never be done. One of the largest infrastructure projects we've ever had in this country. and it's had a tremendous impact. And we got rid of catch and release. We got rid of all of the stuff that we had to live with. But now the caravans, they think Biden's getting in. The caravans are forming again. They want to come in again and rip off our country. Can't let it happen. As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side. We have a deep and enduring love for America in our hearts. We love our country. We have overwhelming pride in this great country, and we have it deep in our souls. Together we are determined to defend and preserve government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Our brightest days are before us. Our greatest achievements still wait. I think one of our great achievements will be election security, because nobody until I came along had any idea how corrupt our elections were. And again, most people would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, I want to thank you very much. And they go off to some other life. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. It can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our book, for our children, and for our beloved country. And I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give. The Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down